I'll tell you what, that dang old internet, man, you just go on there and point and click it, and talk about www. Call me, you got then.
For some reason or another, you sounded a little taller on radio.
Well, for my money, he's got all the facial characteristics of a criminal.
Now, here's your host, that gravy-sopping, crappie-flopping, stump-jumping, Bible-thumping, gun-toting, mater-growing son of a gun, the backwoods Baptist himself, Pastor Harold Smith.
Welcome. Oh, welcome to the Northwoods. It's not exactly the backwoods, it is the Northwoods. I'm here at Genesis Church in Boyne City.
Boyne City.
With my good friend, longtime friend. We've known each other a long time.
And Southerner.
Yeah, and native Southerner. He's been sent here to redeem the heathen, much the way Paul was sent to the heathen. No. John Shearhart, it's good to have you on the podcast. I'm excited about this.
Good to be on. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I always start with how did we meet? And we were having a hard time earlier today determining how we met.
Yeah, it's a long time ago. I think it was when I was having some trouble at a church, and you reached out to me, I believe. Somebody passed my name on to you, and you called me up.
You know, I thought it just dawned on me. I think somebody was telling me they had family in the church. And they were going, yeah, this guy's down there, and he's preaching this, this, and this. And I was like, he'd probably make a good friend, you know, just based on what your enemies say about you. You can determine kind of who they're talking about. And you were at the First Baptist Church of Paris back then.
Back then, I was.
And so I remember reaching out to you. Somehow I got your phone number. And my wife and I, we came down and we had dinner at the parsonage with you and Jenny. And the kids are all like grown and married. And back then they were little bitty. I mean, I don't know, how old were your kids when they were at Paris? I mean, we're talking 15, 16 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I was in Alabama for almost 10, and I've been here 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was in Paris for 2, so it would have been sometime 15 years.
15 years ago. And so, anyways, the cool thing is, when you were in Paris, I got to know you. We started what we call Preachers of Grace, which was at the time was like a morning coffee club. We met on a Tuesday morning for coffee, and I always wanted to have a conference, like, you know, have people preach, and we never really got around to doing that with the club, so finally we held it at the church. I know you preached in a time or two, but anyways, then you moved to Alabama. My wife and kids and I were going to the beach in Alabama, and I said, we need to figure out where the Shearharts are, pay them a visit. So we dropped by the parsonage there and visited with you and your wife and the kids and just kind of caught up. And then when you finished your ministry there, you came back to our area of Arkansas for probably a year, I would guess. Right at a year. And I was stepping down as pastor at Lee Creek and was doing this ministry that I'm in now. And I remember lining you up for couple of Sundays to fill the pulpit at Lee Creek, a couple of months. You would come in for an entire month, preach every Sunday of the month while they were continuing the pastor search. And we've just always been good friends when we're around.
That's right.
And we've been different parts of the country, but always good friends when we're around. And when you moved to Michigan and to Boyne City to take over this church plant here, I was like, well, I'm going to have to find my way to Michigan. And I planned a trip, probably your first year here, to see you, to see Terry Basham, who's the pastor I'll interview after you. He's just an hour and 20, 30 minutes from here. And I went up into the Upper Peninsula and came back down and went to see the people I interviewed just the other day, William Gilkey in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin. And I had a week that I didn't have anywhere to be. And Terry would just move to Michigan. You had just moved to Michigan. And William had just found out that he was going to be blind. There was no way around it. He was losing his sight. He had a limited amount of time left. And I was like, I just want to go encourage John, encourage Terry, and encourage William. And so I took about 6 days and made a big loop up through the north and did it. And everybody was like, well, that was dumb. You just drove up there to say hello. And I was like, no, I don't think it was dumb. I think it was needed. I think it was good for me. It was good for them. And I think the Lord blessed it. And then another year, Missy and I both were going to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and we came by here. And once again, you fed us a great meal, and we just enjoyed catching up with your kids and you and Jenny, and it's just a good time. And so I just kind of feel like the Lord ever moves you from here, I hope it's somewhere I've never been before, because I would like to go to that area. Is that pretty much the way you see it, John? I did a lot of talking there.
Yeah, that's all right. No, that's a good recollection.
I didn't stretch it in any ministerial way, did I?
No, not that I'm going to admit here.
But I think that's just one of the things that has kept our friendship valuable is we don't call and talk to each other every week. It's not like that kind of, hey, John, what'd you have for dinner today? But when we get together, it's like nothing ever happened. It's like,
yeah,
I feel like it was like I just left here a year ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't change much, does it?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. And you and I have done a few barbecue videos together in my other YouTube channel where I used to do barbecue reviews. There's actually a barbecue place in the area, Stig's, I believe. And we went and ate there, and then did a review, and it was good barbecue. Surprisingly good barbecue for up north.
You got me free. Can't remember what they gave me now. I went in there one day.
They remembered you?
And they remembered me, yeah. And she said, "You're that guy who does the reviews." And I was like, "Well, actually, I wasn't going to say it too loud, but I was just with the guy who does reviews. But sure, I'll take whatever you want."
It seems like they sent me a message. I think I was on Facebook back then, and they sent me a message and said that the video was like mandatory watching for the people that work there. Like, this is how you do it, And but anyways, yeah, that was fun, and it's just always. And then you've came home to see your wife's family and your family. When you're in the area, we always try to get together. But why don't you tell people about the ministry here and what you do at Genesis Church? Just explain Genesis Church, because this is not a typical, in my mind, it's not typical church.
No.
Not that it's a bad church, just the way it's structured, the way things work here, your role here. I think it's interesting, and I think it needs to be told.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's my favorite ministry so far. I have been a pastor. You talked about some of those places I've been, county seat type Baptist
First Baptist Church.
Southern Baptist Church. We have the van, we have the stained glass, we have the pews. In Alabama, there were people who had their places. This is where my blanket goes, and this is where my calculator goes, and, that kind of church.
That's true.
And coming here, it's a totally different type of ministry altogether. It's a totally different type of atmosphere altogether. Genesis Boyne comes out of Genesis Petoskey, another town about 25 minutes from here. And the thing that we want to do, we have our values, and one of those is that we are outward focused. We want to be with the community. And so we focus very strongly on that aspect. And we focus on, we want to be everything a church is supposed to be, but we don't ever want to get to the spot where people are comfortable putting their blankets down, because we're always moving forward. We're always reaching the community and inviting other people in and stretching ourselves and finding ways to serve. And it's just a totally different type of ministry here. And then to add to it, it gets a little bit more complicated. So I was talking about Genesis Petoskey. They are going to celebrate this October their 20th birthday. We call it a birthday, not an anniversary, because we're talking about a church, so it's a birthday. We are going to celebrate our 15th. So in that time, since we've started, and I've only been here for 3, the church did really well, and then it didn't do so well. And then it did really well, and then it really dropped down pretty low, where they actually discussed, should we even continue? I was having a conversation with somebody the other day who was in those conversations.
Right.
Somebody said, well, what we really need is a building and a pastor. And he looked around and he said, are you crazy? There's like 10 of us here. We don't need a building or a pastor. But he got overruled, and he was grateful that he had. because the church now, I mean, we are a beacon. We're a gospel preaching church in this community.
Yeah.
And we're vibrant. We have on any Sunday between 80 and 100 people come to one of our gatherings, and it's interesting because you have your people who are only here for the summer, and then they'll wrap up their houses in plastic or whatever and head down to Florida. Most of them go to Florida. They come back, so you have them for certain amounts of time. You have your locals who are here year-round. You have your ski group who only comes in the wintertime. And they become regulars, but it's very irregular. And so it's not like this church where I know that Miss Susie sits right there on the third row, fourth seat over. That's just not going to happen. There's just so much change and so much.
So you could have regular members that are faithful when they're here.
The 6 months they're here or the 3 months.
But they're not ever seeing other faithful members who are faithful when they're here.
That's right.
Just because of the transient nature of the people that live here various times.
And to this point, we're actually sitting in our new building here. This was a Masonic temple that we have converted.
Say that again real close into the microphone. This was a Masonic temple.
This was a Masonic temple. It actually, I didn't see it myself, but they said that when you came in the front door, apparently there's some kind of prescribed maze that they had to have. Walls and door, I don't know. I can't picture it, but some kind of maze they had. And then right here where we're sitting was where the, I don't know what they call them, the Grand Poobah or whatever. He stood right here and did his talking.
Oh.
So we're sitting in that spot right now.
We're sitting here because this building's almost completely renovated.
Almost complete. We are meeting in City Hall right across the street above the police station. And so just that alone, we are what we call church in a box. So we have a big crate that we put all our stuff in, and we tote it in and out every Sunday. And I think part of the transient nature is that right there. We don't have a lot of opportunities where we can meet outside of Sunday mornings. We can, but you have to schedule the building or get a room or whatever.
Right.
And once we have this building, that's one of our hopes, is that we can put more effort into that kind of fellowship.
And being a Masonic lodge that it once was, what it was built for, I found almost all of those are two-story. I'm sure there's some secret meaning to that. I don't know. That nobody ever taught me the handshake. The funny thing about Masons is their motto is ask one, be one. So if you want to be a Mason, you ask a Mason to be one, and then, you kind of have to ask and then get invited if you ask. I've never asked to be one, but I've had the offer about 4 or 5 times.
Have you really?
If you ever want to be one, our motto is ask one, be one. Harold, you just have to let me know. I'll put you right in. And I'm like, well, doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of ask one, be one? It's almost like these guys that say, all you have to do to be saved is ask the Lord to save you. Now repeat after me. Yeah, it's kind of the same deal. But, I came here. Y'all had just purchased the building. The demolition had just began the first time I saw the building. And that was probably over a year ago.
Probably 2 years ago.
Probably
maybe?
2 years ago. And we walked in, and you could, they were in the process of gutting the things they didn't want, breaking down the secret maze. So, but anyways, it is probably, I would say 90% done, 95% done. There's just final things that need to be done before you're ready to have it open. And so you'll have a gathering place here, like a sanctuary for your worship service here. And then what would you have, like educational and fellowship space in the bottom?
Yeah, downstairs it's the same footprint as upstairs, and that's where we're going to put. We're not allowed to call it a kitchen. You have to have a food pantry. So we have our pantry down there, and then we've got some of those accordion-style walls we can break off into classrooms.
Okay.
And so, it's a fellowship space, classroom space, mostly kids down there.
Yeah. So you can't call it a kitchen for legal reasons, like
apparently,
for the building code thing?
Yeah, something like that. You can't have a stove, and you can't prepare food without a license.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that. That's I was talking to a guy, and he's like, you get really creative with crockpot meals when you can't have a stove. He was like, you'd be surprised what a Baptist can put together in a crockpot. I said, man, I bet you're right. Yeah. But anyways, that's good. So this is probably one of the nicest communities the Backwoods Baptist will visit in his American tour. Talk a little bit, if somebody's not familiar with Michigan, especially northern Michigan, this looks like a tourist area to me.
It is very tourist area. When my experience with the North, before I moved here, I went to Moody Bible for a year. And so that's as far as I made it north. And when I heard about this place, that's all I had to go off of. And I thought it would be something like, Illinois, where everything is flat. And it's just not the same. And I'm from Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas. So it's a lot of beauty. And when we got here, it started to become more clear what it was. It's actually a lot like Northwest Arkansas in many ways. The rocks are different and the trees are different, but the beauty is the same. And there's so much water. Everybody has water everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I don't know when it started, but this has become a very tourist area. So it makes a weird dynamic. You have a very blue-collar, working-class town, and then you have a lot of money. And some of it's a lot.
Yeah, what's the name of this lake out here?
This is Lake Charlevoix.
Lake Charlevoix. Okay. I saw yachts on that lake that, would purchase half the community that I live in. I'm not just my house, but I mean the houses that I live in the area where I live. I mean, it was like, man, and I remember the first time I came here, it was exactly what you said. I stopped at the gas station to get gas, and I talked to some people, and it was just like I was in a gas station in Arkansas, except they all loved my accent.
Say their A is a little different.
Yeah. And they were like, my goodness, where are you from? And I remember the lady at the gas station goes, could you just stay here and talk for a while? That's what she wanted me to do. But it was just a normal, kind of cutting up joking. And then I rounded the corner and I'm like, man, they're having yacht races, like sailboat races. And I was like, this is just a whole nother level of money that I guess I'd never really, I'm sure Arkansas has it. I just never laid eyes on it. And I thought, wow, this is a pretty affluent community. And then you're around the corner and it's just a bunch of small houses, people work in the neighborhood.
That's right.
It is an odd dynamic.
And it has made it very interesting because really it's benefited the entire community. Everybody makes their money in the summer. And so we had Boyne Thunder down here. I don't remember the number. I'm throwing it out there. I think it was like we had 25,000 people come through here.
Right.
It's a 5,000, it's not a big town.
5,000 population.
Population is 5,000. I think it was 25. It might have been higher or lower. It gets where you can't even drive through here. I drive all the way around and stay out of town. We get all our groceries before that weekend. But you have that situation where these people are coming in and they're spending so much money, and that's when everybody works, that's when they make their money, and then they all leave. And so you still have this community, but because of all of the commerce, we have a lot of things that I've been in towns bigger than this that we couldn't afford these things.
Yeah.
But this town, you look out there, it's very clean, it's very well maintained.
Yeah.
We have a water park. I mean, it's a lot more than we should have.
I remember you and I going to a farmer's market one time when I came through here on a Saturday maybe. And I thought, man, it was nicer than the farmer market in Fort Smith, Arkansas, a town of 80,000 that's surrounded by farming communities.
Yeah.
And we came here and I'm like, this is unreal. But that's why it's this coming together because of this mix of rural and vacation, and you have an affluent community with expendable incomes, and it just makes for a great dynamic, really. But at the same time, do you find when it comes to evangelism, encountering people just in your day-to-day life, is that easier to do when it's the locals in the times in between the tourist areas, or is that easier to do when people are here from out of town on vacation? Where do you have conversations? Do you find yourself mainly relationship conversations, or is it just striking up with people passing through? It's
a little bit of both, but I would say that it leans heavier toward the locals. I know all the people in the coffee shop. I know all the people, I meet people and get to know their names. And then through that get opportunities to get to speak to them about it. We don't really put a lot of focus on the vacationers, just because I'm talking the short term, the 2 week, that kind of stuff. Just because they're here and they're gone, and there's not a lot of opportunity to meet them. The snowbirds who are here longer, we do put more emphasis on them, but really our main focus is on the locals. And it's very interesting. I have been in the ministry a very long time, and I have never served at a place. And I don't want to. I'm not in any way putting those other places down. I'm not.
Oh
saying
no,
that,
yeah, I think everybody here understands that. Just compare it. I want you to contrast it, because you've pastored in Northwest Arkansas, you've pastored in the Delta of East Arkansas, you've pastored in the River Valley near me, you've pastored in Deep South Alabama.
Yeah,
and now you're in the shed. I think Kid Rock has a home here somewhere near.
He does, somewhere near here.
Yeah, and so
there is a hunger here.
Give us your perspective. That's what I want you to do on the podcast. I'm like, I want to sit down with John and talk about that. Okay, you're a Deep South guy. You're a hillbilly. You were born and raised here. You've come up north, and the Lord's using you, and there's a great work going on in the community. Tell us about the cultural differences that you've noticed. Other than, and I don't want you to run down the people here like they don't season their food right. You know what I mean? If I fix something that's too spicy, I get all that. And I don't want you to feel like you're running anybody here down. And I don't want you to think that, I know nobody listening from the South is going to say, well, that boy's done left his raisin. I just give us your perspective. What's the big takeaways?
So, okay. Culturally, it's surprisingly the same. It is not very different. I feel like this place could be put anywhere in the South and it would fit just perfectly right in. Water aside and all that. But the attitude of the people, just their way, their outlook, all of it is very much like what I'm used to. The biggest difference that I noticed just as a pastor, the churches where I was before, they were all very mature. They were all very developed churches. They had foundations. They'd been there for a very long time. But there wasn't a hunger and a zeal for something spiritual like there is here. Now here, it goes the wrong way a lot of times too. There's a lot of the crystal stuff. I saw a lady with like a chicken foot or something on her. I don't know what it was.
Like a Lucky Charm?
Yeah, but she was explaining the spiritual significance of it. I mean, it really meant something to her. So there's a spiritual hunger here that I've never experienced before. I don't know if that's a cultural thing so much as it is just this is where God is working right now. And it's in a way I've never seen. And so the role that I see myself playing more than any other is to help people find their way through that, whether they are experienced Christians or new Christians, and help them to guide it towards a place where it's for the glory of Christ.
Yeah.
That's my goal as I do this. But that is, to me, the biggest difference that I see as a pastor is this is a place that is full of freshness and excitement, and I'm so thankful I get to be on board and be a part of it.
Is that because you've been pastoring in what we call the Bible Belt, where church is just expected and everybody goes?
Yeah.
And you come up north and it's not expected, and most people didn't grow up going to church?
This sounds like an exaggeration, but I'm telling you, these are two real conversations that I had. One of them, one of the pastors spoke about when Jesus was betrayed, and afterward, one of the ladies came up and said to me, I had to look up who that Judas guy was because I didn't know. I'd never heard of him.
Judas Iscariot.
She had no idea who Judas was. And then another person told me, he said, I was just surprised. I knew the concept of David and Goliath. I mean, I've heard about it. I just didn't know it was a story out of the Bible. And so we're facing that. When I first got here, when I was preaching, I would say things like, you all know this story, because I grew up in churches where you could say that.
Yeah.
And they told me, they said, don't say that, because you'll be surprised there are a lot of people who don't know. And I've since found out that, when I preach, I always preach to the saints. That's my job, is to equip the saints for the work of the ministry. But at the same time, I have to remember that there are people in the room who don't know these. I mean, I'm going to talk about Asaph, who's chief musician for David. Well, they're not going to know what that means.
Right.
So I have to, in 5 seconds or less, give a quick, King David, he was this guy. And
you've got to do a bunch of background work that you don't have to do in the South.
That's right.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, because when we're talking in the South, sometimes when I'm in a church, and I get the joy or curse, however you want to look at it, of preaching in a number of different churches. And so a lot of times I will do just what you said. Well, it said over here, and I name off some story. And most of the time, people are nodding their head. They know what I'm talking about. So I don't say a whole lot. I just kind of move for the sake of time. I just reference it. But the church that you are in the network of churches that this is, y'all are expositional preachers. This is not. It's not like you're doing some kind of shallow topical. Right. It's not like the people haven't been exposed in the Genesis churches of deep theological exposition with explaining. It's just simply they don't have years and years and years of sitting in a pew.
It's a young church. That's right. And the older ones that are there, I mean, it might be, I don't know the dynamic or the number, but it might be that half of the people there are experienced with the Bible and know something about it. But then you've got this other group, half or whatever it is, that they just walked into church. I mean, I've been struggling with booze and I don't know what else to do about it. My life's falling apart and now I'm here. I mean, I had that conversation. This is a real conversation from just a couple weeks ago.
Right.
I don't know anything about God.
I think about all of the kids that were raised in church and they hit college and they never came back. In the South, that's a large segment of the people you're going to deal with. In the North, that's a small segment of the people you're going to deal with. And I think that's good that you point that out. And I think when you're trying to minister to people without that steeped church background, it's good to keep that in mind. It really, really is. Because, I mean, if you're preaching in North Carolina, that's kind of the buckle of the Bible Belt. If that lady's 80 years old, she's been in church 80 years and 9 months. You know what I mean? And that's and that's just your average person. Just because they went to VBS 4 times every summer, they went to 2 church camps with 2 different churches. They went to youth night. They've been to 3 tent meetings. That's all in that Western North Carolina, North Georgia mindset. That's just the way it is. But when you get outside of that, it's just radically different.
Yeah, there's some real illiteracy.
Yeah. What's your biggest challenge here at Genesis as opposed to, other than that, just are there things here that you say, okay, in the South we did this, in the North we don't, but we should? And I don't want to get you in trouble. I don't want you to say anything.
I got an answer.
Go ahead.
I've got an answer to it. Yeah. No, I think that it's not to do with cultural. It's to do with where our own history, I think. We have been a church that has had to operate from, what do they call that mentality? It's like a shortage mentality. That's not the way it goes, but it's something like that.
Famine. You haven't had it.
Yeah, we're just always need. And because we've met at the high school, we've met at the library or wherever. They've met in different places. We have never had a place to call our own, and they have been doing it for all this time. And I think that when you have that kind of a scarcity mindset, that's what I was trying to think
scarcity.
Scarcity mindset. When you have that kind of a mindset, and it's your default mindset, and you haven't had opportunity to build upon it and to grow from it, then what I've experienced is there is a lack of structure at Genesis Boyne that I feel like this is my job to work on this. We don't have a lot of opportunity for fellowship. We don't have a lot of opportunity for discipleship, like that deep discipleship you were talking about. You've got your hour on Sunday, and that's all you've got. And so we have a lot of people who don't know the names of 5 people in the room. Mm. And we have a lot of people who don't know much theology. And so that, to me, our biggest hurdle that we have to overcome is we need to build in the structure to solidify, we call it partnership, but membership. It's the same thing, essentially. We want to solidify and know who our base is, know who our people are, who are accountable to us and who we are accountable to. And then, as we go, begin to develop leaders who can take over more ministries. And that's not to say we don't have leaders, because we have a bunch of great leaders and a bunch of great people who serve, but not as a whole unit.
Right.
That, to me, is our biggest challenge. And I think that's the building is the beginning of a new chapter. It's not the end of anything. It's not like, okay, now we can rest. And it's not a magic tool. It's not going to solve all our problems. We're about to have a whole bunch of new problems we don't even know about.
Right.
But at the same time, I think that the cause of our problems, that big problem I'm talking about, is that we didn't have a building.
Yeah.
And now we will. We can have survey classes.
So a
and
centralized
banquets.
location for meeting more than just Sunday.
That's right.
Yeah. I have found that to be the case in talking to pastors that have worked out of rented spaces. That's what they all have said. Yeah, we come together, we have a great, worship service, we have a great time of preaching, Bible study, and then everybody goes back their own way. And I really feel like the downfall of a lot of churches is in the downfall of the fellowship time and the united, I don't know how you say it. I can give you an example. Like at Lee Creek, where I pastored for 14 years, there was a time where I taught Sunday school, I preached Sunday morning, I preached Sunday night, and I did a Bible study on Wednesday night. 4 times a week, the same people heard me teach or preach. And our church was small, and our people all came 4 times a week. So I used to brag, man, we got like nearly 100% prayer meetings attendance, nearly 100% Sunday school attendance. And they would be like, really? And I'm like, same 25 show up every time. It was a little more than 25. But my point was, they didn't really need to hear me teach 4 times a week in order to be spiritually and biblically equipped to handle the week. What they needed was to develop a real close fellowship, a family type mentality with the congregation. And so we canceled Sunday school. And I mean, some of the older people, when I said we're not going to do Sunday school anymore,
But that went well.
oh, they were like, I could have insulted their children and got a better look from them. But they also recognized that, hey, Harold is the pastor and he's prayed about this, and he's responsible for teaching and leading us in this area. So let's go along and see what happens. What happened was I served breakfast every Sunday morning. It was prepared. Don't eat, just show up. I'll have breakfast ready. And so they would come and sit around a table and eat a sausage egg biscuit or pancakes or, whatever, breakfast casserole. I'd mixed it up, and they's like, hey, how are you? Well, how's your family? And they would just start talking. And so then next Sunday it was like, well, did you ever hear back from your daughter? Or what did you find out? What about your neighbor that's battling cancer? It was gone beyond just, hey, good to see you at church today. Hey, man, good to see you again. Just slap your hand, simple conversation, to it was really a deep, intimate concern, stuff you wouldn't pick up on a prayer request.
Yeah.
Things you wouldn't pick up in the handshaking before or after a service. It was stuff you only get sipping a cup of coffee, talking every week for 45 minutes or an hour. And allowing those conversations to take place, allowing women in the church to make connections with other ladies, it just built a unity in the body that you couldn't put together any other way.
We were made to break bread together.
Yes, they broke their bread house
Daily.
to house. Yeah, and so there was this commitment. There was this sharing of a meal together. And in the ministry I'm in now, John, of going to churches that are struggling, maybe they're on the brink of closure. Several of them are. When I go there, one of the first things I ask them is, when's the last time you had a church-wide fellowship? And they talk about COVID closing churches. COVID closed the fellowship hall. Mm-hmm. People were scared to death to eat a meal cooked in somebody else's home. And since they had that fear, they just closed. They quit fellowshipping together. They lost the family atmosphere. I mean, we refer to each other as brother and sister because of our relationship in Christ. But it really is a family. The church is a family. It's a body. And I think once you lose that, you really struggle with just staying open for the sake of teaching.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just you're all listening to the same sermon every week.
Yeah.
There's no opportunity to grow together.
Yeah.
Our model is that we see our gathering as we use different words for everything. So it's not our we are the church and we gather. Yeah. So our gathering is the easiest to get into, but there's really no accountability. And so our goal is we kind of see it like a funnel where the gathering is low commitment, but also low any kind of intimacy. But then after that, we hope to get you to come to something like in Petoskey, they have had traditionally what they call Real Women and Man Up. Yeah. And it's just a once a month kind of thing where they get together and eat pizza and they hear a talk or whatever. But then after that, it's a little harder to get into that, and the intimacy goes up just a little. But then after that, we want you to come to a home group where it's even harder to get into.
More accountability.
And you're really talking to people and you're getting to know.
Yeah.
And then after that, prayer quads, which we'd like 4 men or 4 women to get together. And this is where it's very hard to get into those, because these guys spend sometimes years building trust with each other where they can say anything to each other. But there's really high intimacy and accountability. And so that's our model, is that we want to funnel people down. We're preaching to people, to the saints, to equip them for the work of the ministry, and we feel like that happens best through very personal and close relationships.
Yeah. And I think you see that in Christ and his disciples. He had 12. Mm-hmm. He'd break them up in groups, and ultimately we get down to just 3 or 4 sometimes that he would, do most of his teaching and speaking with. And I think that's important. I think whatever you want to call it, if you want to call it small group, if you want to call it a cell group, a home group, a church should not be just one big corporate body and that's it. Mm-hmm. And there's a group out there, I think they're called Family Integrated Church Movement. There's a guy who's a part of the National Center for Family Integrated Churches. But the idea is we don't need a youth group. We don't need a children's group. We don't need a age-segregated Sunday school. Mom, dad, and the kids need to stay together at all times.
I like that.
And at first I thought I liked that.
As a whole, I mean.
Yeah, as a whole. But then I was like, look, man, if you can't trust your kids with another Christian to be taught something directed to their age group, you got bigger problems than I can deal with, If your biggest fear is that they're going to go to Sunday school and maybe they're going to think Noah's Ark's too small, I mean, give me a break. So there is something to the corporate gathering of the church. Everybody should be together. Yeah. But there should be some smaller groups that meet, and they can meet around different things. It could be age-related, or it could be interest-related, or it could just be comfort level related. We have, we're all close. We should meet and pray. We should meet and do those things. And I think finding that balance of small groups here, bigger groups here, and still being outward. Another big danger you see, especially from my perspective in dealing with churches that are, in times of trouble, is sometimes churches, they do, using your funnel down to get smaller and smaller and smaller. They get smaller, but they don't have any top. It's like us 4 and no more. Mm-hmm. And you see that a lot in the South, especially.
Yeah. I'm used to that.
You're used to a church that if somebody new showed up, they're like, what are they doing here?
Yeah. Or if they leave, nobody ever calls them or tries to.
Well, good riddance.
Well,
they were not all that were.
They were never. They were never with us.
They that went out from us were not of us. If they were with us, they would have stayed with us.
Yeah.
That mindset is something that sinks a church just as fast as not really developing anything.
That's one of the things I really like about Genesis Church, too. There's a lot I like about Genesis Church. But the outward focus, that is one of we have 5 values, and that's one of our values, is that we should be outward focused. And we don't just mean it as a church, we mean it as in our own lives. The lead pastor, Norm Byers, he really leads by example and stuff like this. But we chose this building, which really doesn't fit our needs. Some people look at me like I'm crazy when I try to explain this to them. But I catch this vision, and I'm all for it. I think it's right. This building doesn't really meet all of our needs, but that's okay because we can adjust. We can have 2 gatherings. That's not that big of a deal. It's the location. The people watching can't see this, but we are right across from Veterans Park on Lake Charlevoix. This is where everything happens, and we're right in the middle of it. And our goal, another one of our values, is to be open-handed. And so this building is a tool. There is no, you've been in those sanctuaries where if you bring coffee in, the guy runs over there and he starts telling you about how this is the house of God. You're not allowed to have that. That's not going to happen here. We want to treat it with respect. It's a building. God's given it to us, but it's for use. Yeah. And so if the Boy Scouts want to meet here or AA
or the Quilters Club or whatever
club or anything, you don't even have to be, obviously, if you're the cult of Satan or whatever, you're not going to meet here. But otherwise, we're not going to police that. You don't have to have a spiritual or godly reason to be here.
Yeah.
We want to be outward focused and open-handed. And so we open up this building for anybody who wants to use it. Just get, you got to go through the process and all. But we want to share all of our stuff because we believe that God has given it to us to share and to use for his glory. And sharing it invites people in. And now hey, there's a church where people were friendly. They let us use their stuff. Maybe we should go check that church out. And that puts them under our preaching ministry so that we have an opportunity to speak in their lives.
Really, in the old days, the church functioned as the community center. It was the place where you went to vote. It turned into a courthouse during the week. Many times you built a building to hold a Sunday worship service in. It's empty Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Why wouldn't you open it up to be used? Now, like you said, obviously, you don't want to turn it into a hobo camp or a homeless shelter. The Salvation Army is the Salvation Army for a reason. But if there's some, group that you could benefit, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And I see so many times, looking back in my own ministry, churches used to be where you went to vote. Even in my day, I can remember the ladies coming to me going, "Now, Brother Harold, you can't come to your office tomorrow because it's election day. And we can't." And I said, "I can go to my office." And they said, No, you can't. Well, what it was is I couldn't be out there preaching or doing something religious. I could go in my office and shut the door, but they were under the impression I couldn't be on the grounds. Like, we can't have a preacher here while people vote. But we opened the church up to the polling people. And so the polling people came in, they set up the voting machines and everything, and they did all that. That's the way it should be. We got buildings that we're only occupying 2 days a week.
God gave you that.
Yeah,
You're a good
it's
steward.
a great building. Why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you allow people to do that? And like I said, be smart about it and don't let people trash it. But at the same time, it's here if you need it, And I think that's a good thing. I think that's something more churches should consider is how could I utilize the building? And like you said, we just want people to know who we are and where we are. And then if they ever get convicted, I need to go to church somewhere. Well, the only church I know is the one that's been open to us.
You'd be amazed at how much that changes things.
Yeah.
Just giving away your time and your resources without any strings attached. This is purely for just relational.
Yep.
I'm just trying to build relationship with people.
It's a PR work, a public relations work, where we just simply open it up and say, here it is.
We love, and so, yeah, I know you don't mean it in a negative way.
No, I don't mean like a PR stunt.
Our city.
Yeah.
We want to serve them.
Yeah.
And we get the benefit of that.
Yeah.
As time goes on, we build those relationships and we have opportunities.
Yeah. I think that's very wise. And I think I agree with you 100%. If you go through Boyne City, you are, if I remember right, the farmers market's just like right there.
Literally walk right out the front door.
And City Hall's like right there.
Right there.
And so when you are situated in that spot, I pastored a church that was on the edge of town. You couldn't shoot a BB gun on our side of the street. On the other side of the street, you could tannerite a beaver dam with a high-powered rifle, and it was perfectly legal. But because we were in the city, you couldn't. Okay, well, here was the problem with that. City hadn't developed. They had claimed the land out to us, but there were no subdivisions around us. There was no store next door. It wasn't on your way to anywhere. It wasn't. And I would tell people, the church I pastored, and they're like, where's that at? I'm like, it's literally 1 minute from Walmart. But it was past Walmart going out of town.
And it feels like you're out of town.
It feels like you're out in the country.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about a town of 20,000 people. If we were to poll them, most of them wouldn't know where our church even was. Now, if you ask them where First Baptist is, oh, yeah, it's the big church right on the curve when you come across the bridge. If I ask them where Heritage Methodist Church was, oh, it's right across from the high school because you drive right by it. But if I asked them where our church was, nobody knew.
Yeah.
location really matters. If you're going to pick a building, I mean, pick one that's on the way to somewhere.
Pick a Masonic temple.
Pick a Masonic temple. Oh, that's great. Don't get me started on Masons, man. I'll be running.
I don't know anything about them.
I know enough not to like them. I said that I've been very critical of Masons in sermons before, and I guess Masons have approached me afterwards, and they said, I don't know what you got against the Masons Lodge, and I'm like, where do you want to start? How about the deity? How about God himself? You believe in a universal God. Yep, there's only one God. I said, okay, who's his son? Well, now, because they don't believe in the exclusivity of Christ, because all Masons go to heaven, and there's Muslim Masons. There's Masons that believe in other God, or, God that doesn't have Jesus Christ as his son. And I'm saying, so when you open up the avenue to heaven for some other way other than Christ, if you have some great architect God in the sky who didn't have a son named Jesus, you've missed it.
The doctrines of demons, they call it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we can start there, and then we can go to your secret society, and we can go through a whole bunch of other stuff after that. But no, there's no place for Masons who believe that they've earned their righteousness. That's what that apron is that they wear in their pictures. That's their righteousness.
I did a funeral once where the guy, I did half, and then this Masonic guy did the other half.
Yeah.
And that was the experience I had where I realized, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, they actually
but it's not
take
me.
sticks and they say a chant and they launch the soul into heaven.
That's what, yeah.
That's a religion. That's a false religion. That's
voodoo.
That's voodoo. That's creepy is what that is. But you don't learn all that on the front end. We're just a bunch of Christians meeting down here serving pancakes on Saturday. No, you're not. You're a false religion. Yeah. And I don't mind saying that, but I said I didn't want to get off on that. But anytime we get close to Masons, I just have to throw that in there because, hey, a bunch of our founding fathers were Masons, and so they tend to use that and lobby for that. But if you're in the Masons Lodge, you can stop listening now or get right with God, your choice. That's where I'm at. I don't really care. We've been going 45 minutes, John. I know you're having some back trouble. You good?
I'm all right. I'm good.
Is there anything you would like to talk about? I've kind of steered everything talking about.
I like you steering.
You like me steering? Well,
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about what you've picked up north. I wanted to talk about planting a church up here, reaching people up here. You've done a good job. I'll tell you what I want to talk about, but I'll save that for next. Is there anything that you thought about living up north that you wouldn't like, that when you got here you were like, hey, that's pretty good? I'm just talking about from a purely secular perspective.
So right before I got this,
No, I'm asking you this because you've made this statement to me several times. I'll never go back.
I'll never go back.
I'll never go back.
Never.
I'm north from now on.
I'm north.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why didn't you just get out of high school and go north, John? There was something. Well, that's what I'm asking. What
I don't know if we want to tell everybody.
You want it to be your little secret?
Keep it small, yeah. No, before I came up here.
Just pick a couple things that you say, maybe I thought this about living up north and I got here and I like it, or this is something that has really flipped my view.
Yeah. I really thought that the north was Yankees. And maybe that's the southern guy in me, but I don't know. I thought they were
They all fought for the north, every single one of them. That's what we've been told.
They're just, hoity-toity bunch of Yankees, I don't know. Get up there and figure it out, I guess. But one of the first weeks that I was here, I was at the hardware store and I saw a short wide on a lift kit with a giant rebel flag, and I thought that looks like cultural appropriation. I sent a picture of it back home, and I told some of those guys, like, man, I'm at home here, The people are not at all what I thought they were going to be like. They're not Yankees at all. I mean this is a compliment. They're basically rednecks, just like me.
Right.
So that was the main thing that I thought was going to be different. Other than that, like I said, my experience was up to Chicago, and so I didn't know what the landscape was going to be like. The one that's lived up to its name is that the food from the South is by far infinitely better. Let me get myself in trouble.
Now, for everybody listening, I just ate lunch at John's house, and he served me steak, mashed potatoes, rice, and crawfish etouffee.
The crawfish goes all over the top. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we just coated everything in crawfish etouffee, and it was marvelous.
Yeah.
And
butter and salt and
I
bacon
didn't
grease.
ask you privately, so I asked you publicly. Where did you get the crawfish up here?
Those come from, I think, Meijer, the local grocery store here.
For those of you down south that have never been to a Meijer grocery store, you are missing. If we had a Meijer somewhere in the south, I would go there.
I go there every time over Walmart.
I'll never. I hate Walmart.
I do too. We can get going on that.
Yeah, we can talk about the devil at any time. My wife said, "You want to just pull into Walmart?" I said, "No, I don't like shopping with the devil. Let's find
That's
some
right.
local place." So we went into Meijer Foods, and I was like, "They got a home side, like Walmart has the home and the grocer side." And I was like, "They've got that here." So we go in the grocery store and we walk in, and I'm like, look at all the produce. We're in Sault Ste. Marie's of the Upper Peninsula.
Canada.
Yeah, we're nearly Canada. I could throw a rock and hit Canada. And I'm like, and this is kind of an outpost of a town, and I'm like, look at the produce in here. And I mean, it's just aisles and aisles of fresh produce. There's a full service deli counter twice as big as any Walmart supercenter you'll ever be in. Then there's all this sausage and lunch meat and 9,000 kinds of bacon. And I'm like, this is unreal. Just, you go into Walmart, it's a whole lot of the same thing. I walked in here and I just couldn't get over the variety. I couldn't get over how many different hot dogs there were. And I was like, have you ever seen this? And my wife and I were looking at each other. We went to the coffee section. I said, I'm going to buy some coffee I can't get back home. The Meijer brand, whatever their store brand of coffee, I bought a couple packages of it, but that coffee section was 2 to 3 times greater than any Walmart I've ever been in. And I'm from Arkansas, Walmart headquarters. And I said, man, if we had one of these. So then I went to the other side. Yes, they got fishing poles. They got mosquito repellent. They got all that stuff and a better selection. And it's not all, I was just like, these people could put Walmart under if they went on an expansion.
They could. And they're local. That's what I like.
Yeah.
They're regional, but
yeah,
it's not a global corporation or
and
whatever.
if you want to Google it, it's not spelled M-Y-E-R like it should be.
M-E-I-J-E-R or something like that.
M-E-I-J-E-R, yeah. I even asked the lady, I said, so how do you pronounce this place? Is it like major? She goes, no, it's minor. And I said, what's with a J? She goes, honest to God, I don't know. That's what she said. So, okay. So we've talked about the people are not as bad as you thought they were going to be.
Yeah, great people.
Great people. And the food is not as good.
So, okay, let me tell you this.
Now look, we've had good food here, but I know what you're saying. There's a reason they call it Southern cooking.
Yes. Yeah, it doesn't mean that no one here can cook. It means that when I was in the South, when I was in Alabama, we had birthday fellowship every fourth Wednesday or whatever it was. The food that you would get there consistently meets my palate, what I like.
Yeah.
It's greasy and it's salty and it's filling and it's just different.
It's why the South is not as healthy as the North.
Which is the reason we're all overweight. So much good food.
Yeah.
It's not like that here. And there are some things that I have tried that I've really liked.
Right.
And then other things, they just, need a little salt, need a little bacon grease to go with it.
Nobody goes up north to learn to cook. They all go down south. Yeah. And but that's okay. Another thing I wanted to ask you about, I didn't know this till today. You said you went to Moody.
Yeah,
for a
year.
Now, I've had no aspirations of going to school. I mean, I hated high school. I hated elementary school. I hated preschool. If it ended in school, I didn't like it. But I always said if I was ever going to go to school, I wanted to go to Moody. That's what ever since I learned about Moody, ever since I learned about being there in Chicago and the people that have headed it up over the years, I've always felt like that would be the school that if I were going to go, I would went to. What did you think about going to Moody?
Oh, I thought it was great. I only went there for a year because I was engaged, and I did not want to try and raise a family in Chicago.
Yeah.
Raising a family was high on my list of things to do soon, and it wasn't going to be there. But while I was there, when I first went, this guy came up to me wearing a suit and tie, and he's, hey, what's your name? And I said, I'm John Shearhart. And he says, hi, John, I'm Joe Stoll. And shook hands, and I had no idea who Joe Stoll was until later, and I realized that's Joseph Stoll, the president of Moody Bible. And he's out, and that was kind of the attitude. Everybody was just, man, it was great. Dr. Marty was my Old Testament, New Testament survey instructor. And the things that I learned while I was there, I think Moody really shares a lot of values with Genesis Church. They're non-denominational, and so are we. We are non-denominational, but very Baptistic in theology. If you want to apply a label to it, it's going to be Baptist. It's the closest you're going to get. But then just that general welcomeness and friendliness toward all people. We want to be welcoming to people. And so
did you live on campus?
I did.
Did you like traveling around off campus?
No.
I mean, everything I hear about Chicago is like, there's more gun deaths in Chicago than Gaza Strip, that kind of stuff.
I was never worried for that. It was always people trying to ask for money. You couldn't, and now there were two students. One student got shot changing his tire on campus by two guys who tried to rob him, and then there was another couple who got shot at. The guy apparently shot his wife and then tried to shoot at them. I never saw anything like that. But it was always people trying to come up and do your shoes or whatever, and they want $20 to do your shoes.
Of course, this was nearly 20 years ago.
Yes, a long time back, yeah.
Yeah. But overall, you thought it was a good school.
I loved it. Yeah, I love Moody.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would have been a school that would have suited me well.
Tuition paid, too.
Really?
Yeah, there's no, you don't have to pay any tuition. You buy your books and pay for your dorm.
Wow.
At least when I went there. I don't know if they still do it.
The only other person I've ever asked about going to school at Moody was Phil Johnson, John MacArthur's editor at Grace to You.
Oh.
And I asked Phil one time, I said, how'd you end up in California? Because I know you're from Claremore, Oklahoma. And he said, well, I went to school at Moody. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. And he said, while I was at Moody, I think he went to, I may get Phil's story all wrong, but this is basically what he told me. He went to Florida to be an associate pastor or something like that. But while he was at Moody, he met Warren Wiersbe. And Warren, has written a lot of books. Wiersbe's B series. There was a lot of, Warren Wiersbe was a prolific writer. He reached out to Phil and said, hey, we really need an editor. You're gifted at editing. Come back and work in Moody. And so he moved back to Moody and was editing all of Warren Wiersbe's books. Now, wouldn't that be a great job to edit all of Warren Wiersbe's books? Except he started editing John MacArthur's commentaries and went like, I love Warren Wiersbe, but I like Dr. MacArthur's theology better. Yeah. And so MacArthur was like, really, Phil, we need somebody like you just to come out to California. I don't like having to get on the phone and call Chicago to California, to L.A. and back and forth. And so Phil made the decision to go to L.A. or
for the theology.
Santa Clarita. Yeah. Just because he knew he was going to be an editor. He knew he was going to be involved in the work that he's doing. And, of course, if you're looking at it, and Phil didn't say this, just me looking at it from a business perspective, Warren Wiersbe's much older. The amount of time you're going to be with Warren Wiersbe he's talking to John MacArthur in the early 80s.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've read some of his B series, and I know a little bit about Warren Wiersbe, not as much as I know about John MacArthur, but I based my early preaching ministry on John MacArthur.
Really?
Yeah, his style. I adopted his style. I eventually found my own voice, but
when
I first started, he was a major influence in how just the grounded I like that.
This is what it says. This is what it says to us. This is what it says. This is what it says to us. It's not that you're changing what it says. It's this is how we can see it today in our own lives. Yeah, MacArthur's been influential on me as well. And I remember when I first surrendered to preach, I knew God called me to preach, and I finally made that public. And I started getting all these invitations to go preach, like, hey, come fill the pulpit. I'll be out of town next week. My entire theological library was the 2-volume, I can't even think of the guy's name. Anyways, it's some well-known commentary, but it was the whole Bible in 2 volumes, and I'm drawing a blank. But anyways, that was all I had. So Matthew Henry's concise commentary of the whole Bible, that's what it was. So it was like basically one Oxford dictionary was my entire theological library, broke down in 2 volumes. And so I'd read the Bible, and I'd go over there and I'd read what he had to say. And sometimes it was like 3 words, and I was like, well, that didn't help, He skipped those verses. And a friend of mine's passed away now. His name is Danny Burton. He had been doing a Bible study in his home, and that was becoming its own church now. And he said, hey, I found this guy. You're not going to believe it, but he believes like us. And I'm like, Danny, nobody believes like us. And he goes, no, I've been reading him. He goes, he's like us. And I was like, Danny, because we always felt like oddballs. But Danny and Jesse Anderson and I did a podcast together. And we ended up just talking about Danny Burton for probably 2/3 of the podcast.
The pool guy.
The pool guy.
Yeah, I remember him.
So Danny Burton had this verse-by-verse men's Bible study at his home. And he had an open Bible, and he would read the verse, and he'd say, now, what do you think that means? And that was just not like you get to decide what it means to you. It was just to open the floor for discussion. And he had some commentaries that he was reading, and different things, and he would say, yeah, but in light of this, and so we'd have 20 guys, 20 men, not kids, 20 men in a room, construction workers, blue-collar guys, white-collar guys. This thing would start at 7 o'clock, and sometimes it wouldn't end until midnight. Because sometimes it'd be a deep verse or a deep portion, and we'd sit in there and wrestle that out, and you'd have guys saying, oh, it means this, and the other men would say it can't mean that because these clear passages over here say that's not possible. And so we ended up with a very grace-centered, God-sovereign, big God, small sinful man theology. And kind of, amongst ourselves, we were like, man, we're weirdos. Nobody else believes like, but we didn't even know what to call that.
Right.
We just knew that this is what the Bible says, and this is, if you take the Bible as a whole, God's big, he's in control, we're not. So he says, man, I found this guy, and you got to get his books. And he's like, you ever heard of John MacArthur? And I'm like,
it's hard to imagine now, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm like, no, never heard of him. I mean, this is 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I wasn't in a theological circle. I didn't go to seminary or Bible. I didn't even go to college. And I'm like, never heard of him. He goes, oh yeah, he's even got a study Bible. So he ordered me a John MacArthur study Bible in New King James. And he ordered me like 3 commentaries, I think 3 commentaries out of his set. It was Romans 1-8 and the first 2 volumes of Matthew 1-8 and Matthew 9-16. And then maybe I had Ephesians too. I don't know. I had like 4 MacArthur commentaries. And so I'd read my Bible. I'd read my Matthew Henry, little concise. And then I'd flip over here to John MacArthur and it'd be 5 pages. And I'm like, good night. And I'd start reading all this and reading. And I was like, yep, that's pretty much, that's what I thought, from an educated guy, Oh, that's what that Greek word means. Oh, okay. So to me, it was just kind of a spotlight shining on the text. And I knew that I learned way more going verse by verse than I did just walking into Sunday school and wondering what today's topic was going to be, or going into the youth group and hearing another message on whatever. So when I entered the preaching ministry, once I was through bouncing around and I started pastoring, I'm going to go verse by verse. And I'm going to pick a book. We're going to start in chapter 1, verse 1, and we're going to go to the end. or till I get fired or whatever happens next. And I was committed to that. And by being committed to that, it forced me to really study and to drill in, knowing I couldn't just skip the next verse if I didn't like it.
Yeah, it's coming.
It's coming. And, and what you're saying now needs to be doable in the next chapter.
Right.
If I mess this all up and get in the next chapter, then I have to back up and go, well, what I said 3 weeks ago, never mind that, and just not knowing anything else about MacArthur, but just having a couple of these books. And like, this is unreal that he's done all these books. His commentaries weren't even complete back then. He was still preaching through books. They were still editing his commentaries. But that just sunk into me like, that's what I want to do. I want to preach through the whole Bible.
Yeah.
And
there's just such a weightiness that comes with that.
Yeah.
It's I don't know how else to describe it. There's just a stability to the preaching ministry, to his ministry, when you stand there and there's no flair, there's no fluff.
Yeah.
He's not trying to win you over. He is just preaching the gospel.
Yeah.
That to me was very appealing and still is.
Most people don't know this, and I'll say it on the podcast for the 8 people that listen, including my mother, but Grace Community Church that John MacArthur pastored until he passed away was a Methodist church when he became pastor.
I did not know that.
Yeah, most people don't. It was a Methodist church. It had women elders, and it baptized infants.
Did not know that.
Yes, that's a fact.
Did he change or did he change them?
He unleashed God's truth one verse at a time.
Huh. So
in other words, he didn't go in there with an agenda of, I'm going to convert this to a Baptistic church. I'm going to go in here and get rid of the elders. I actually heard John say this in a recording. This is not something personal he told me, but he said, I just started preaching through books of the Bible. And it wasn't 1 Timothy chapter 3.
Yeah.
He said, I was just preaching through books of the Bible. And he said, about 2 years in, he said, some of the women elders came to me and said, Pastor MacArthur, I just don't feel like I'm really elder material in light of what we're, studying. And we're just basically admitting I really shouldn't be an elder. And like John said, it wasn't because must be the husband of one wife. And he didn't read I will not allow a woman to exert authority over me. It wasn't any of those passages.
It's truth.
It's just, this is a big old God here in Matthew chapter 1. Look how big he is, or wherever he's at. And when you get a big God and a small man, if you shouldn't be doing something, God tends to make that known to you.
Yeah.
And so then people were like, well, why are we baptizing our infants? They don't even know who God is yet. And it wasn't because he's preaching on, John the Baptist. It was just going through the Bible and letting God be God. And that's been my experience in the long term. And I pastored a church for 14 years. You build a lot of credibility when you go verse by verse through books.
Yeah. And we don't really go verse by verse at Genesis Church. We tend to be more topical. But I've found that you can be exegetical and you can go verse by verse. So tomorrow I'm preaching from Psalm 73, and it's going to be an exegetical sermon or expositional sermon of the Psalm.
Yeah.
But we break it up into parts where it's easy to digest and stuff like that. But I have found that, the more personable you can be, and if you can tell some stories that illustrate and highlight, they have to have purpose.
Sure.
Those things make you easier to hear. But if you don't come at it from that section, you don't come at it from the perspective of this is what God says.
Yeah.
And I'm basing everything I say on what the text in front of us says. And everything I say, I always say that, it never goes this way. It never goes from me to the text. It always goes from the text to me. And that's what I want to talk to you about. There is so much power in that when you just let God's word speak. I mean, he says, my word will accomplish what I send it out to do.
Yeah.
And some of these preachers, that's all they do is they just get up like, what was his name we were talking about him last night? He just got up there and just reading the word. And it had so much power in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I firmly believe that.
And I think, going back to that style of preaching, if you just let the Bible be the Bible, then you can preach any portion of the Bible. And nobody's going to go, well, he's twisting that Bible around to make
That's
it
right.
mean what he meant. No. You build up over time. You build up with your people, the people you shepherd. You know, he wouldn't tell us this if it were not so.
Yeah.
You know,
And
these
I've got
hard
25 years of
Yeah.
Bible experience.
Yeah.
I know what it says.
Yeah, and but I remember early on, and even sometimes in some of the revitalization work that I've done, people's like, well, he knows the Bible. He's always twisting it around to suit his purpose. And I'm like, no, my purpose is the Bible. I'm not twisting
glory.
it. I'm twisting the church to suit the Bible.
Yeah.
You just don't like what the Bible says. The
You gotta
problem is
change.
not me. It's you.
God's glory is the goal.
Yeah.
Conformity to that image.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing. And I have learned that here in Michigan. We've had some life changes and some things that have been very challenging for us. And to realize that God is doing something in me through that. I remember the first time, I had some sad story about some things that were going on, and I was telling Pastor Norm about it, and I told you, he really practices this stuff. And I was telling him my problems or whatever, and he just said, well, what do you think God's trying to tell you through this? And I got so... I don't want to hear that right now.
Yeah, just
I
let
wanna
me gripe.
Tell me how sad my life is, how right I am for thinking this way and how wrong they are. No, you're right. That you are right, and God and those people are wrong, but what's God trying to tell you through this?
Yeah.
And the only way you're going to know the answer to that is through the scriptures. You have to get to that part where
right.
what is this saying to me personally?
That's it. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. And if we can convey that to the people, that's why MacArthur's slogan was unleashing God's truth, one verse at a time.
Mm-hmm.
He just was, here's what it says, here's what it says, here's what it says. And I think churches that do that, and like you said, it doesn't have to be verse by verse through a book of the Bible. I have started preaching more series, more topical messages. I've got a series that I've been preaching since I'm not in any one church long term right now. I've pretty much got an itinerant ministry for the time being. I've been preaching a series called The Tale of Twos. And I've just discovered that the Bible is full of these contrasting, sometimes complementing ministries. And so there's the tale of two sticks. One of them is groomed and produces much fruit. The other one's cast into the fire. There's the tale of two streets. One of them very narrow, one of them broad and easy to get down. There's the tale of two sons. One of them Cain, one of them Abel. You have the tale of two sacrifices. One the fruit of Cain's hands, and the other is the shed blood of a lamb from the flock. You have the tale of two siblings, a prodigal that stayed home and a prodigal that went abroad. Both of them were prodigal. So when you start looking at these twos, I think about the tale of two soldiers. One went to combat and the other went to the rooftop. One of them fell into adultery and murder, and the other one died a valiant death at the hand of his own king.
Interesting.
Yeah, but when we start looking at things from a series perspective, I would never preach David and Bathsheba from the perspective of Uriah and David, two soldiers.
Yeah.
That's a striking difference.
It gives you a little creativity.
Yeah, back up a book, going to 1 Samuel, you've got the tale of two swords. There's only two swords in all of Israel when Saul and Jonathan, when Saul's king and Jonathan's general, they each have a sword. That's only two swords. Saul is hiding under a pomegranate tree.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan says to his armor bearer, let's get up here between a rock and a hard spot and let's see what God can do. Now, whose hands would you like to be in if you were one of two swords? Do you want to be in the coward's hand or the conqueror's hand? Mm-hmm. I say all that to say there's a tale of two showers. The Lord causes it to rain on the just and the unjust. God sends rain on those that love him and those that don't.
Yeah.
That tells us a lot about who God is, but more importantly, it needs to tell us who we are.
Yes.
Just because you've been rained on doesn't mean that you're a child of God. Just because you have a yacht sitting out here on this lake doesn't mean that you've lived a holy life.
That's right.
And I don't know who's got a yacht out there, but my point is when you start looking at things from a series perspective, I'm going to preach on the tale of two showers tomorrow. When you start thinking about these two, sometimes it rains on the unjust and the just get a drought. Does that mean God loves them less? I mean, go back to your story. It's not raining over here. It's kind of hard and hot and dry. I mean, why can't I get the showers of blessing? And, well, what's God trying to teach you here?
Yeah.
You get things out of a series, or you get things out of a topical message you wouldn't get verse by verse. Now, some guys say they're verse by verse preachers, but they preach on like 2 words.
Yeah.
That's a topical message. Just own it. That's
That's
a
right,
topical
it is,
message. Yeah, you don't exegete 2 words.
Well, and then you end up spending, I know a guy who spent like 5 years in the book of Isaiah. And it's, that's fine, I guess, but what about the rest of the Bible? Your people need more than just one. I mean, I would be irritated if my wife served me nothing but steak for 3 years. The steak is good, but I don't want it for 3 years.
Yeah, and served you one bite at a time. Here's you a little nibble.
Well,
now, you chew that thoroughly before we give you any more.
That's right.
I'm like, I can eat faster. Keep it. You
Keep
cut
it coming,
me.
and tomorrow, can we have spaghetti or something?
While I'm chewing, you start cutting. I want some more. But you're right. I mean, there's a benefit to that. But I think when you let the text be the text, whatever text you're in, let the text be the text. Yeah. And your people will benefit from it, and you'll have credibility with the people over it. John, we've been going for an hour and 15 minutes. Anything you want to finish with?
Yeah, so you started asking me why I wouldn't go back to the South.
Yeah.
Why I wouldn't live back in the South. And I'll tell you the reason why. It's I think it's 94 degrees at your house right now, and it's 70 degrees here.
It makes it hard to go home, John.
Man, it is so nice.
We've spent the last 2 days in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I've had no internet. I probably have 9,000 emails, and I have had no way to communicate with the outside world. I mean, I've got a cell phone, but a lot of the business I do and the communication I do is through email, and I don't know what's happened on the internet. It's been pretty nice, but the nicest thing about it was, I think as hot as it got was like 74.
Yeah.
And a lot of that time it was in the 60s, lower 60s, cool breeze coming off the lake. It makes me wonder, how could I trade the cold for the heat? And I think I could, because I like cold weather.
So if you have a garage, that's the other thing I was going to tell you about. When we first moved here, we bought this house, and we have a wood burning stove, so we have a wood shed outside, a fairly big one. And this wood shed has this long pole, aluminum pole with a flat aluminum rectangle at the top of it. I don't know, we saw it, we're like, what is that thing? I don't know what that thing is. We're never going to use it, but just stick it over there. And the winter comes, and we got a really bad winter last year. I mean, I'm talking, it was a lot of snow, and it was a lot of snow fast, and it stayed. And we actually lost power. Some places lost power for weeks. But when I realized what the tool was, it was too late. But I saw this water coming through my drywall in the room, just like the walls were weeping water. And I called somebody, and I said, what is going on? And he said, well, have you checked your ice dams? And I said, well, what are ice dams? And he said, go outside and look at the top of your roof and see. And we had 10-inch ice dams on our roof. We had to get up there with axes this is in February, the middle of winter. We're up there with axes, my boys and I, and we are cutting these into lengths that we can manage to push off the roof and hope that
just
they don't
big frozen
break
chunks
anything.
on top of your roof.
It's ice dams. Yeah, now, I mean, it makes sense when you hear what it is. You see it, it's like, oh, yeah, ice dams. I know what those are. What that tool is a snow rake.
Yeah.
A roof rake. You're supposed to take the roof. So if you have a garage where you don't always have to pull it off your car, and if you will use your roof rake, this really is not a bad place, especially in town, because they come in, they take care of it. Yeah, it's all done. And the winters are long and gray, but if you want to compare to the very long, you want the 10-month summer of the South?
I don't.
Or do you want the 2 or 3 months of winter here?
I'm telling you,
I'll take cold and gray.
Yeah. I could be a convert, I'm pretty sure. Well, John, we got to get going.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for feeding me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I was hoping the church would be done so we could come in and look at it all finished up, but
Next trip,
gives me an excuse to come back, doesn't it?
come back.
All right. If you're still listening to this, you're probably a backwoods Baptist too. We'll see you on the next one.